ladies and gentlemen, scholars of the everyday, poets of the prosaic. Welcome. Tonight, we gather not to discuss the great wars, the canonical texts, or the abstract theories that so often dominate our academic discourse. No, tonight, we turn our attention to a subject far more immediate, far more sorial, and I would argue, far more profound in its ability to illuminate the human condition. Tonight, we dissect an experience specific in time and place, yet universal in its emotional resonance. We will journey together to the sun-scorched, subtropical metropolis of Tampa Bay, Florida. More specifically, we will find ourselves behind the wheel of an automobile on a particularly fraught and beautiful stretch of infrastructure. The intersection of 56th Street and the Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, colloquially known as BBD. Our temporal coordinates are equally precise. A Friday night, in the immediate, shimmering aftermath of a torrential rainstorm. Our soundtrack, both literal and metaphorical, is the velvet-toned canon of Mr. Frank Sinatra. This is merely a lecture about driving. This is a lecture, space, place, and identity. It is a study in alchemy, where the base of concrete, rubber, water, and artificial light are, for a brief, splendid moment, transmuted into something approaching gold. It is an exploration of how a mundane, often stressful activity like navigating heavy traffic can be elevated into a sublime, cinematic, and deeply personal ritual. Let us begin by setting the stage, for the stage itself is the primary character in our drama. Our story begins not on the asphalt, but in the sky above it. For hours, a quintessential Florida tempest has raged, not the gentle, melancholy drizzle of a Pacific Northwest autumn, but a furious, theatrical deluge. The rain, down in sheets, driven by winds that bent the royal palms lining the boulevards. It was a cleansing, a violent baptism for a city that spends its days sweltering under a subtropical sun. The gutters became temporary rivers, carrying the detritus of the day-fallen magnolia leaves, discarded fast food wrappers, the ghostly shed skin of a cicada towards the storm drains. And then, as abruptly as it began, it stopped. This is the crucial moment. The after-rain. It is a liminal space, a threshold between the chaos of the storm and the settled humidity of the night. The air, for the first time in days, is cool. It carries a complex bouquet, the sweet, narcotic scent of wet jasmine and night-blooming flowers from nearby yards, undercut by the clean, mineral smell of ozone and the primal, earthy odor of wet concrete and asphalt. This is the smell of a city breathing a sigh of relief. It is into this freshly washed world that we, as our subject, insert ourselves. We are at the helm of our vehicle. Let us imagine, for the sake of romance, a car with a bit of soul. Perhaps a classic, with curves that catch the light, or a modern machine polished to a mirror shine. Its headlights pierce the lingering mist, two probing beams of intent. The first alchemy occurs immediately. The rain has laid a perfect, glossy veneer over every surface. The blacktop of 56th Street is no longer a rough, utilitarian surface. It has become a dark mirror, a sprawling obsidian lake that reflects the world above. Every streetlight, every traffic signal, every illuminated storefront sign is now doubled. They shimmer and dance in the wet film, creating a secondary city, an inverse metropolis that exists solely on the ground. The solid, reliable world has become fluid and dreamlike. The lines of the road, those stark white and yellow directives, are smeared into abstract, glowing ribbons under your wheels. You are not just driving on a road, you are piloting a craft across the surface of a dark, liquid cosmos, navigating by the reflections of stars that are, in reality, just sodium vapor lamps. And now, we approach our main intersection. 56th Street, a major north-south artery, meets the Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, a sprawling, multi-lane thoroughfare that funnels commuters from the sprawling suburbs of Wesley Chapel and New Tampa down to the urban core of the city and the universities. On a Friday night at this nexus, the city's pulse is strongest. This is where our experience from simple aesthetic pleasure to a complex negotiation with the urban landscape. Because the traffic is heavy, it is not the stop and go of a parking lot, but a thick, purposeful flow, bumper to bumper. a river of steel and glass of destination and desire. From our elevated perspective within our vehicle, we observe the other travelers, each encased in their own mobile capsule. To the left, a massive pickup truck, its tires humming a low, guttural note on the wet pavement, its occupant staring straight ahead, perhaps heading home to a family in Land O'Lakes. To the right, a compact car, a student from USF, the thump of their bass-heavy music a faint, competing rhythm against the Sinatra in our own cabin. Ahead, a family in an SUV, the faint blue glow of a tablet in the back seat illuminating a child's face. We are all separate, isolated in our individual bubbles, yet we are moving in a kind of synchronized choreography, a ballet of brake lights and turn signals. The rain has tempered the aggression. The usual Friday night impatience is soothed by the need for caution, for a greater following distance. The collective act of driving becomes a cooperative venture, and it is in this moment, at a standstill, that you have the time to truly look. You look at the vehicle stopped next to you. It could be a weathered minivan, its sides streaked with the city's grime, now washed clean by the rain, looking almost new and vulnerable under the orange glow of the streetlight. Or it could be a low-slung sports car, its curves polished to a gleam, the raindrops on its hood like a constellation of tiny, brilliant jewels. The streetlights, those ubiquitous sentinels of the suburb, are transformed. Their light is not harsh or functional. It is a liquid amber, a warm sodium orange that pools on the wet surfaces, that catches the edge of a chrome bumper and throws it into sharp, dazzling relief. The cars cease to be mere appliances. In this light, on this wet mirror, they become objects of beauty, sculptural forms gliding silently through a landscape of reflected light. They are beautiful, they are all beautiful. But we have yet to introduce the final, and perhaps most critical, element of our alchemical formula, the music. It is not just any music. It is the voice of Frank Sinatra. As you sit in this river of traffic, the cool, rain-washed air whispering through a slightly cracked window, you press play. And the cabin of your car becomes a sanctuary. The world outside, with its riptides of traffic and the anonymous faces, is suddenly given a soundtrack, a narrative framework. The first notes of "I've Got You Under My Skin" might swell from the speakers, the Nelson Riddle arrangement filling every corner of the vehicle. Suddenly, the scene is no longer just a commute, it's the opening credits of a film. You are the star. The city outside, with its reflected lights and slow-moving traffic, is the backdrop to your contemplative journey. The mundane act of waiting for a red light to change on BD is imbued with a cinematic weight. When "Come Fly With Me" plays, the heavy traffic becomes a minor inconvenience, a temporary delay before a grand adventure. The wet streets aren't an obstacle. They are a runway, gleaming under the lights, waiting for you to accelerate into the night. The car becomes a magic carpet, its power a promise of escape and freedom, even if that escape is merely the open road ahead on 56th Street. And then, perhaps, a ballad. In the wee small hours of the morning, this is where the experience deepens. As you, the beautiful, rain-slicked cars around you, each one a home for a stranger's story, the music encourages a profound sense of introspection and connection. You are not just seeing vehicles, you are seeing the vessels of other lives. The man in the truck, the student in the compact, the family in the SUV, they all have their own Friday night destinations, their own joys, their own sorrows. Under the spell of Sinatra, the anonymity of the crowd dissolves into a sense of shared humanity. You are all characters in the same city, moving the same beautiful, transient moment. The loneliness of the solo driver is transformed into a poignant, beautiful solitude, a feeling of being comfortably, thoughtfully alone, yet surrounded by the quiet, collective pulse of a million other lives. The music does not just accompany the visuals, it interprets them. The red glow of 1,000 brake lights, stretching down BBD like a river of rubies, is no longer a symbol of congestion. Accompanied by the melancholy of "one for my baby" and one more for the road, it becomes a string of fading embers, a symbol of the day's end, of journeys homeward, of a city settling in for the night. The flash of a yellow turn signal, rhythmically blinking, syncopates with the brass section in your ears. The city is no longer a collection of roads and buildings. It has become a living, breathing organism, and Frank Sinatra's voice is its heartbeat. So, what have we learned from this convergence of rain, traffic, light, and music? Why is this beautiful ride worthy of our academic attention? Because it represents a triumph of perception over circumstance. Objectively, the situation is one of mild stress, heavy traffic, post-storm, on a major thoroughfare. But through a conscious, or even subconscious, act of curation, our subject has transformed it. They have engaged with their environment on a sensory level. They have allowed the beauty of the reflected light to register. They have let the scent of the wet earth fill their lungs. They have used music to frame the visual experience, give it an emotional narrative. This is the essence of what the French philosopher Gaston Bachelard might call the poetics of space. He argued that the spaces we inhabit are not just physical containers, but are sites of our imagination, our memories, our dreams. The automobile, in this context, becomes the ultimate felicitous space. It is a mobile home, a shell that protects us from the elements and the crowd, while offering us a panoramic window onto the world. It is a space we control, the temperature, the music, the direction in the midst of a world we cannot. In the heavy traffic of BBD, you have surrendered control of your speed and your path to the collective flow, but you have absolute sovereignty over your immediate environment. The car becomes a capsule of curated reality. The beauty we see in the other vehicles is a form of what the Romantics called the sublime, a feeling of awe and even a touch of terror in the face of something vast and powerful. The city at night, the endless stream of traffic, the reflective power of the water, these are forces larger than the individual. But by framing them with beauty, by seeing them through the lens of art, we are able to not only withstand their power, but to be enriched by it. We are small, insignificant parts of a massive, complex system, and in that moment of recognition, there is a strange and profound comfort. We belong. And what of Frank Sinatra? His music, for many, is the sound of a certain kind of American mythology. It's the of confidence, of romance, of heartbreak worn like a tailored suit. It is music that is both intimately personal and grandly orchestral. To hear it while moving through a beautiful, liminal space is to write yourself into that mythology. For the duration of the drive, you are not just a person stuck in traffic on a Friday night. You are a character in your own private film noir. You are a crooner. You are a traveler on the edge of something magnificent. The music doesn't just soundtrack the moment. It elevates the driver to the status of protagonist. And then, as these things do, the traffic begins to thin. The river of cars on BBD starts to flow more freely. The red lights ahead, once a solid dam, break into individual, accelerating points. You pass through the intersection at 56th, the light perhaps turning yellow, urging you onward. The world outside your window begins to change. The commercial sprawl gives way to darker, tree-lined streets. The reflections become less about city lights and more about the moonlight filtering through the dripping oak branches, their leaves still heavy with the recent rain. The final notes of a song fade. Perhaps it was New York, a final triumphant burst of energy as you finally break free of the congestion. Or perhaps it was some softer, like summer wind, a gentle, melancholic farewell to the beautiful, fleeting moment you've just experienced. You arrive, your destination. You turn off the engine. For a moment, you sit in the sudden, profound silence. The world is still. The only sound is the gentle, rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water from the car's chassis onto the driveway. The memory of the music, the sight of the reflected lights, the smell of the rain, it all lingers, a phantom limb of sensation. You step out of the car. The air is cool and clean. You are no longer the protagonist of a film. You are just yourself, home at last. But you are changed. You carry with you the residue of the sublime. For an hour on a Friday night, on the rain-slicked streets of Tampa, you were part of beautiful. You were a driver, a listener, a seer. You transformed a commute into a ritual, a thoroughfare into a cathedral of light and sound. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the true, enduring power of the beautiful ride.